He drops his bottom lip like this, and he says, "This is my tattoo. Here it is. This is my tattoo. See?" And the dialogue obviously going on in my head was, Cabot, please put your lip back inside of your mouth before I punch you in your face. I at first have to tell you about my weekend because it was a little cray-cray. I'm pretty convinced that my life is in fact a sitcom, okay? One that's probably being written by Will Ferrell. I sometimes believe I could be a Sims character and someone's having a lot of fun. So on background, I had not spoken about this before because it's pretty lame, but my foot has been broken for the last 4 weeks. I broke my foot, no joke, on Friday the 13th. There's a picture. And I was doing nothing. It was very uncool. I was wearing a slipper that was too big for me. And I got up to take one step. I slipped inside the slipper and I landed like this on the front of my right foot, heard the pop. Very proud of myself. I did not scream because my daughter was within earshot and I didn't want to scare her. But anyway, as you can imagine, with 4 kids beneath the age of 5, it's a minor inconvenience, okay? I can't even hold my youngest, who is 11 months, not yet walking, beyond, a few feet before it grows too tiresome. So anyway, Saturday morning, I get up all the kids, right? We're going to this outdoor market. We're going to meet up with Theo Von. My kids love Theo Von. And at this particular market, there happens to be a playground. I want to be clear, it is a preschool playground. It is for toddlers, not even for kids. So I buy what I need to buy at this market. And my husband is with me and he's holding the 11-month-old because I can't hold him. And it's already, not the best Saturday morning because I had only just learned the day before via a presidential statement that Brigitte Macron is way better looking than me. I actually learned that it's not even close. It's not even close. I'm kind of ashamed to show my face in public. I'm wearing my big sunglasses. Anyway, so I got what I needed for dinner, and I was then heading to the toddler playground right next to the market. So the kids could run around for a bit, and about 40 feet away from the little gate that opens the playground, my husband notices that there's an older woman that's laid out on the concrete in the middle of the parking lot. There's 2 men standing above her. There's obviously something going on. I instantly know what that means. My husband is that kind of guy who is always going to go try to help in every scenario. And he's like, well, I have a medical kit in the car. Let me just see if she's okay. And I'm like, mildly being a little selfish because I'm realizing I'm going to have to hold the bag and I have to hold the baby. And I'm like, there's already guys over there. But I'm like, okay, no, obviously you should go and you should try to help and see if they've called 911. So I just want to put that in your mind. Me in a boot, like a medical boot, walking with a limp, holding a grocery bag on my left shoulder and a very tall, off the charts tall 11-month-old. Just want you to know that in this moment, I'm obviously a victim. It's also like 85 degrees, boiling on top of that. And I make the 40 feet journey. And as soon as I get onto the playground at this preschool, I see Cabot Phillips, okay? Erika's ex-boyfriend, one of the many, current Daily Wire employee who was featured on my podcast when Mitch gave a description of the guy that he believed that he saw with Erika at Fort Huachuca. And back in September, you will recall that I texted Cabot Phillips before we mentioned him on the podcast, looking for a simple yes or no response. Hey, were you at Fort Huachuca? Guy kind of thinks this person fits your description. He made a decision not to answer. Not really sure why. I kind of think it's because he works the Daily Wire and it's kind of like a big drama club and they overthought it. And we're like, we can just ta-da and surprise her, whatever. Anyways, he looks at me and his jaw, literally his mouth was ajar, like a sitcom. I don't think people really do that. I didn't think people really did that in real life, but he did. So I said, hi, Cabot, because what else would you say when someone's like this, And he goes, no, you know what? I am really not wanting to do that right now. And I said, okay, we don't have to do anything. We are in a very confined space here with very small children. He had his 2-year-old. I've got 4 kids on this playground. He was outnumbered, to be clear. I've got 4 kids on this playground. But he was fired up. So he wanted to have a little verbal tussle, I guess. And his energy was giving dad at a t-ball game, the one that wants to argue with the ump, who's really like a teenager volunteering. And he's just like, no. So he then said to me, rather really mysteriously, he was like, this is my son. So I look at the kid, really cute, and I said, oh, hi. And he goes, oh, really? Because of you, people don't believe that he is my son. Okay. Totally confused. I was so confused. I've never been more confused. I'm also hot and I can't walk. I have investigated a great many things on this podcast, but the paternity of Cabot Phillips' son, not this show, wrong podcast. Kamala's grandmother, absolutely, that was me. But this, a little bit out of line. So I said, Cabot, this is not the appropriate place. We are on a toddler playground. If you would like to step outside of this designated play area and have a conversation, I would be happy to, but not in front of my kids. And then he says, oh, now you care about kids? I was like, yeah, that's kind of my whole brand. I care about kids, and my kids have no idea what I do. So again, if you'd like to step out of this perimeter, we can have a chat. And then he sort of huffed and he was texting on his phone. And then he decided that he wasn't done, I guess. And this next part, I just was like, who is writing the script? He drops his bottom lip like this. And he says, this is my tattoo. Here it is. This is my tattoo. See? And I couldn't see anything from where I was standing. I had no idea what was happening. 4 kids, a broken foot, the inside of Cabot's bottom lip, all happening in like 85-degree muggy weather. There's just no justice in this world. I want you guys to understand I was a victim. I'm being victimized on this toddler playground. And the dialogue obviously going on in my head was, Cabot, please put your lip back inside of your mouth before I punch you in your face. But I'm a doll. I'm like a Southern peach now. So I instead reinforced to him, I said, Cabot, we are on a toddler playground. This is just not the appropriate place. And then he said, oh, would your podcast be a more appropriate place? And that was giving Todd from Wedding Crashers when he's like, oh, will that make you love me? And yeah, obviously my podcast would be a more appropriate place because like toddlers are not my general demographic. And I would like to state unequivocally that never in the history of this podcast have I discussed Cabot Phillips' tattoos or his inner lips. And anyway, I think after this, he suddenly sort of arrived at his senses and realized that it was very strange to take your lip out at a toddler playground. But of course, because my life is actually a sitcom, someone thought, wouldn't it also be funny if then after all of that, their like 2 kids wanted to be friends with one another? Exactly what happened. My 2-year-old has now worked out that he's basically the same size as Cabot's, looks like he's 2-year-old. And the 2 of them are looking at each other like they want to play. And I'm like, are we going to do this? I'm looking at my son, looking at his son, just like, are you guys going to really? And they were like, did we just become best friends? So they're looking at each other like, we're the same size and we have the same color hair. And I then had to sit there for the next 15 and 20 minutes, sitting there with my broken foot as our little toddlers drove around each other in their cars. So I just wanted you to know that that is my life in a nutshell. My life is very strange and it's unpredictable. And I want to also state that I believe that that is Cabot Phillips' child. I never made the claim otherwise, but he certainly seemed to know him and to like him. So whatever pocket of the internet is looking into that, consider the matter closed.